Hello, two stories here from ProRevenge. One deals with a boy and his slacking partners on a science project. The other has to deal with a Karen getting fired. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This story is titled, You Make Me Do All the Science Fair Project. I'll throw you under the metaphorical bus. So this is a bit of a read pseudonym. Also, I tried posting this on PettyRevenge, but it didn't work, so please tell me if what I did was petty or ProRevenge here. Cast, pathological liar. Cheap boy, amazing teacher, me is starting to salve. So this story happened when I was in 7th grade. During that time the school district had all students participate in a mandatory annual science fair, from elementary school up to the end of middle school. The idea was to get students interested in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math fields and occupations. After participating in science fairs for 6 years, I was used to the usual rigmarole that a science fair project entailed. I come up with some, hopefully unique, project ideas, most likely the very original electricity from a potato project. I make a hypothesis, collect data, pay the school or Home Depot $10 to $20 for a science fair board, tape up charts and diagrams to the board the night before presenting, and then rinse and repeat for the next year. However, this year my class was doing things a little differently. My class had the honor of being the first to be selected to participate in a virtual science fair. So basically we were voluntold. No one in our section of the district at that time did a virtual science fair before, so we were signed up as guinea pigs to test it out. If that wasn't good enough, my class also had to promote healthy collaboration amongst students, so we were assigned to do projects in a group. Now I hate group work. I always got the short end of the stick in a group. Either my group gets stuck with someone that skimps out on work and the other group members and I have to cover their portion, or everyone in the group except me avoids work like the plague. And no matter how much I urge them to participate, I eventually have to do all the work myself to maintain my precious grades. I was a straight A student at the time, so any group work assigned to me was a threat to my grade and my sanity. If I ever got less than an A on any assignment, my mother would ask me, "Why didn't you get an A? Sonny boy, do you need help at school?" It drove me insane since I wasn't failing. Anyways, the online science fair was pretty simple. As a group, we were assigned access to a group science fair board that we could fill out with our results, figures, hypothesis, etc. We were to have certain parts of the project, like the discussion, done by particular dates to get points towards our grade. The overall project was due in 2 months, and then we were to give a presentation. Amazing teacher was brilliant. She wanted us to record our project progress in a composition book in tandem with the online portion, which she would review during our presentation in 2 months. I believe this was to help us keep track of notes in case we forgot to log them into the computer later, but it was used by me as a tool in my revenge. I was paired with pathological liar and sheep boy, who I was kind of friends with. We brainstormed and settled on testing the performance of an individual in exercise before and after they drink an energy drink. This was in part influenced by Monster Energy drink just becoming popular and Sheep Boy's parents getting a new home gym. I thought it was great since I was playing football at the time and wanted to work out more. Also, pathological liar, Sheep Boy, and I literally shared every class together and lived within a mile of each other, so it would be super easy to communicate. However, Sheep Boy and pathological liar never seemed to want to talk about the project. After 2 weeks of radio silence from pathological liar and Sheep Boy, I finally corralled them in one place and suggested we meet up at Sheep Boy's house that weekend to start the project. On the day of the meetup, Sheep Boy's mom had to go grocery shopping or something, so Sheep Boy was out. Undaunted, I told pathological liar it'd be fine if we work at my house and researched other studies on it to get the ball rolling. But pathological liar never showed up that day. So I decided to confront him on our walk home from school the next day. Oh my god, if you heard what came out of this boy's mouth as an excuse. While we were literally within spitting distance of my house, pathological liar said he couldn't come over yesterday or today because his grandparents had gotten into a plane crash. I was flabbergasted and exclaimed, "What? Really?" But I didn't see anything on the news about a plane crash. Pathological liar responded indignantly, "Plane crashes happen all the time, starting to salve. They're not all going to get reported on. Their plane struck another plane on the tarmac and then rolled over and snapped off both wings." Me, insert surprised Pikachu face, "OMG, I'm so sorry, did they die?" Pathological liar, "What? No, why would they die, idiot? Anyways, I can't do the project this week. See ya." This little turd then ran home. After I got home and deduced that he just fed me a sack of crap. I just said whatever and filed out the preliminary sections of the project and wrote notes in the composition book to at least ensure we had something to turn in next week. I was willing to give the group a second chance, cause maybe their busy middle school lives were swamped. After another 2 weeks of attempting to coordinate my group, and getting them to at least contribute a page or two to the report, we finally decided to meet up at Sheep Boy's house again to start collecting the data. We actually all showed up this time, and Sheep Boy's mom had bought the Monster energy drinks we needed. Pathological Liar started to guzzle them because he wanted to test out the drinks first. Sheep Boy showed off his new home gym and then got us to play Smash Brothers for half an hour. I didn't want to play at first, but then decided to lighten up and we could do the tests afterward. After coaxing my group back to the gym, Pathological Liar just rambled and chit-chatted. Me, trying to be pragmatic, said, "Hey guys, why don't we start our exercise now and record some data, and then afterward I can school y'all in Smash Brothers." Sheep Boy looked willing until Pathological Liar sighed out, "Oh my god, starting to sigh, we didn't invite you out to do this stupid project. We invited you to hang out." Sheep Boy's attitude did a complete 180, chiming in, "Yeah, we don't want to do the stupid project now." I was seething. Pathological Liar spouted a load of bull. This wasn't even his house. I was the one who organized this get-together to collect freaking science fair data. I was the one herding these sheeple around. OMG. The second chance I gave them was taken and then stomped all over the ground, and they weren't getting a third one. I relented and said, "Okay then, let's just hang out then." When I got home that night I was angry, and I used that anger to fuel my revenge. I conscripted my parents to the science fair project, and they helped me collect the data I needed by volunteering to work out and drink energy drinks. The data collection problem was solved. Once I got enough data, I wrote down everything for the science fair project in the composition book. I even uploaded everything to the online science fair board. I created all the PowerPoint slides and scripts for the presentation. Over the next few weeks leading up to the presentation, Sheep Boy and Pathological Liar didn't even ask about the science fair project. They had no intention of doing any of the work. Although my anger fueled me to get the project done, I wasn't finished. I did the pettiest thing I could think of and signed a corner of the composition book with. Starting to did all the work. I knew that Amazing Teacher would be checking our composition books while we were presenting the project, and I couldn't wait to see how Pathological Liar would try to weasel out of this one. On the day of the presentation, Pathological Liar and Sheep Boy were nervously fidgeting at the desks because they didn't have anything prepared. I strolled in and told them to relax since I made a PowerPoint. They relaxed, not knowing how stupid they were going to look while presenting. Oh, how dumb they looked when we started presenting to the whole class. I had already memorized the slides and my script and was effortlessly strolling around the room, making eye contact, and delivering a killer speech on the science fair project. Pathological Liar and Sheep Boy read off the slides with deadpan expressions, with their hands in their pants, not moving an inch. I was relishing this, all the while gleefully peeking to the back of the classroom where Amazing Teacher was reading through our composition book. Amazing Teacher would stop our presentation every once in a while to ask questions and compare with what was written down in the book. But once the bomb dropped, my blood ran cool with maniacal glee. I saw Amazing Teacher stop and read a corner of the book. She then read it out loud. Starting to did all the work. I felt Pathological Liar and Sheep Boy grow cold next to me. Pathological Liar, that cunning fox, stammered out, "Well, yeah, he worked on that section, miss." Amazing Teacher brought her glasses down to the tip of her nose and stared at Pathological Liar over the rims and coolly stated, "So you're telling me that Starting to was just signing his part of the composition book and that you all wrote in here equally?" Pathological Liar, "Yes, miss." I just shrugged. At this point I wavered. I didn't want to feel the social wrath from them or their friends for stepping out and challenging Pathological Liar's lie, so I stayed silent. At least I embarrassed them for a moment. After my crowning achievement of embarrassing Pathological Liar and Sheep Boy, I thought nothing would really come from it, but boy was I wrong. After grades were released for the project, I was totally bummed out that I got a 96%. It wasn't the perfect A that I was hoping for, and knew my mother would be asking me, "Why didn't you get an A+? Why didn't you get a 100%? But then Sheep Boy and Pathological Liar ran up to me with their eyes wide with terror, asking, "What did you get for your grade?" Me, I got a grade. Why, this is how my snarky butt avoided answering questions on my grade. Pathological Liar said, "Sheep Boy got a 66% and I got a 48%. I was shocked to hear that, and then I figured out that Amazing Teacher must have interrogated my group mates on the project separately and awarded them the grades they deserved. OMG, my PettyRevenge tanked the grades. The science fair project was alone 25% of our total grades that year. I was so grateful that amazing teacher saw my frustration and punished them. This story is titled, How I Got Our Translator Fired. I was working a job that had me operating in one of our offices overseas. We would have business expenses, and those receipts would be in the language of the country we were in, obviously. Those expenses were for things like printer ink, office equipment, cleaning services, marketing costs, all pretty standard stuff. Well, around this time we got a new VP over our region who worked out of our head office in LA. This VP came up with this brilliant idea to hire a translator to translate all of our receipts to make sure we weren't sneaking in BS. Fair enough, however, the issue that arose was that we had to send our expenses to the translator who would translate the receipt, then submit them for reimbursement. The problem was this translator was a real Karen type. She would demand better scans of the receipts, oftentimes after we had already thrown them away. She would argue if we really got the best deal on whatever we bought. I remember in one transaction on about $200 of ink cartridges, she asked me why I didn't order online from this common website. To which I said they were out of stock at the time, and we needed the ink, so we bought from a local store. To which she said I was spending too much money. To which I said it's none of your concern, your job is to translate the receipt. To which she said if I want her to submit my expenses I need to be nice to her. To which I said she needs to learn her place, she's a translator, not a VP that gets to instruct me what to do. After this encounter she started being extra anal with my expenses, so one day I came in the office early to call her and try and work things out. She basically told me that I screwed up by pissing her off, and she expected my expense reports to be perfect or she wouldn't submit them unless they were. I told her if she keeps this up she won't have a job much longer. She laughed and wished me well and hung up. A few months later we had our annual meeting in LA, and after the meeting we were at a bar, and I walked up to our VP and started up a conversation. I steered the conversation to expenses, and I asked him how much in monthly expenses did he typically reimburse us for in the country we worked out of. He said about $3,000 to $4,000. I acted surprised and asked, is that all? He goes, yeah. To clarify that $3,000 to $4,000 is the typical spend, and he says yeah, it rarely gets above $4,000. So I ask him about how Karen, our translator, is doing. He says she's doing a good job, and I nod my head and I go, how much fraudulent expenses has she caught? It's important to note, every employee that was submitting expenses was well paid. They'd be awfully stupid trying to skim some extra dollars via fraudulent expense reports. He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, you hired her to ensure all the expenses you were reimbursing us for are legitimate, right? Her job is to translate them for you, correct? He says it is, and I asked, so is it safe to presume you've done that to ensure people aren't submitting BS expenses? He says, you could say that. I smile and ask, so how much in fraudulent expenses has she caught? He thinks for a moment and goes, I don't think she has caught any. So I ask, and how much do we pay her? He says it depends on her workload, but between $2,500 to $3,000 a month. I smile and ask, does it make sense to pay someone $3,000 a month to translate $3,000 in receipts? Well, she ensures we aren't getting fraudulent expenses, and I counter, well, you said she hasn't caught any in the last 9 months, and the expenses are always between $3,000 to $4,000. So as long as the expenses stay in that range, wouldn't it be safe to assume that the expenses are legitimate? And couldn't you bring on a translator on a contract basis if they get out of hand? He sees my point, and imagine the cost savings. We would probably save over $40,000 a year. That's a good chunk of change, isn't it? The VP tries to defend his position, but she does a good job, and I counter, but you could frame this as you've saved us $40,000 a year, and created a baseline to judge expenses by. Cutting costs is always good for the bottom line and the end of the year bonuses, isn't it? FYI, I knew that a major percent of a VP comp package with the company had to do with the company's margin at the end of the year. The bigger the margin, the bigger the bonus. You can see the twinkle in his eye. We carry on the rest of the night. A few weeks later we get an email from the VP saying that we are to submit all of our expenses directly to the admin for reimbursement and that we have let go of Karen. FYI, Karen wasn't her real name, obviously. Thank you so very much for listening. Please check out my other videos and like and subscribe.